David, shut the fuck up. You're just sucking T4 ROM's dick.
All right, first of all, Ryan, you're a bitch. And I mean that truthfully. And second of all, your ego lifting is going to be your downfall. Is that good?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ryan Dosa podcast. Today, we are joined by David Martin. David is an online coach and fellow Team 4 ROM member. He is a natural bodybuilder and was invited to the Las Vegas RP Transformation Challenge photo shoot. I have him here today to quarterly discuss range of motion as it applies to hypertrophy training. We may or may not get into it, so stay tuned. But David, how are you doing today?
Doing well, man. It's been a very good Friday. It's a little gray in the Midwest as always. It's typically the weather out here. But we're trying to be productive, got some good training in, and that's pretty much all I do in my life. So good day over here, man. How about yourself?
Awesome, man. Yeah. Well, as you know, I'm 3 hours behind you, so I'm just getting started with the day. I already trained a client, got a few later. Probably get a small, short training session in between that.
What you
So
hitting today?
going well. No, man. I decide like the second I just show up and it's like, what am
You're
I?
so contrarian these days, bro.
Yeah, and I'm
Holy
not.
shit.
I'm definitely not going to hit. I hit pushing muscles yesterday, so those are fried. Nothing there, but I'll probably hit legs. But yeah, that's the thing with my. I kind of just go with the flow.
So California of you.
That's how we do it out here, man. No structured training out here. We just, Arnold, just chest every day, chest.
I feel like your meme is like watches Alberto Nunez prep series once.
Um, that's funny. Yeah, no, I watched more than a few Alberto Nunez prep series. It's
For
really
those who don't get that joke, he basically did a whole prep where he didn't track macros or anything. So that's what
that,
that was.
isn't that crazy?
Yeah, and he looked great. So
Yeah, I couldn't do that. I see. I nutritionally, I need to try. I can do the training. Me and him are opposite. He needs to track his training. He can do the nutrition. I'm the opposite. I don't know about you.
hmm. I could probably get away with not tracking my nutrition, but I'm not there yet. Like in theory, I've done some things without tracking, but like to do a whole prep is it's the next level.
Yeah, yeah, it's
So,
inhuman because it's like every cell in your body is just like screaming at you to eat some more food.
mhm.
Yeah, well, I didn't bring you on here today to talk about macros. You know why you're here. So
Oh, I've been real bad.
we're
Oh
just
wait, no, wrong video, wrong video.
um so I didn't prepare any script. We're just gonna get into it. We're just gonna kind of flow. We're just gonna, if you disagree with something, just feel free to cut me off. We're just gonna kind of mesh in here. So range of motion introduction. So range of motion has been something that's being debated, within hypertrophy circles, strength training. Basically, you know, at first glance, it might seem appealing to lift the most weight possible, right? Um, we obviously see a correlation between strength and size in relevant sports. And so it's like, okay, if you can squat a lot of weight, 300, 400, 500 pounds, that should correlate to muscular gains. Uh, so this has kind of been, the theory here, the hypothesis. Fast forward, probably like 2010, 2015, especially 2020, kind of some anecdotes and research started coming out. It's like, hey, the range of motion is really important, right? We see, you know, there's a lot of growth to be had, especially in that lengthened position. You want to get the fiber tension throughout the whole thing. Dr. Mike coming out, research, hey, range of motion is pretty much the shit. And we see the shift within the community right now. Everyone's doing full range of motion, ass to grass, like everything, really dropping the loads by like 50%, as much as 70%, really focusing on the squeeze. Like you're a fan of kind of, the Jared curls, right? All the way up, really just focus on technique. And so the debate is, because there's a trade-off, right? You can't, should you maximize weight on the bar? Should you maximize technique? It's kind of like in an inverse there. Obviously, you want both as high as possible, but it is an inverse, right? We talk about injury risk as well. The big thing Dr. Mike touts is, injury risk. If you have a bunch of weight on the bar, you're not doing the full range of motion. If a rep gets off or something, you have all that weight on, a lot of shit can go wrong, especially when you're enhanced and because when you're strong as fuck, right? So would you pretty much agree? Anything to add there?
I guess another thing to consider is just the anecdotal response to partial ranges of motion, whether it's planned or not planned. Like they're commonly utilized. They've been commonly utilized for decades within the bodybuilding community, like the more hardcore, untested, that type of population. So yeah, I think that was a good intro and good segue into the discussion.
Okay, sweet, cool. So we got that. Now I want to spend a good amount of time, like at least 5 minutes each, kind of talking about like your personal experience with it, and then I'll talk about mine, and we'll kind of see if we can uh parse kind of what we should be doing from maybe what we shouldn't be doing, and the individual. So talk a little bit about your journey with this, because I know you kind of started out powerlifting background, like lift as much weight as possible, got some gains there, and then you talk about, oh, you discover full ROM and shit just started clicking. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think even before I really discovered Dr. Mike, Team Full ROM, I did personal training. Like I was a client of a guy who was a very successful, um, maybe I shouldn't say untested, but so there's basically like the pro strongmans, Thor, Brian Shaw, and then there's like another federation that's a little bit more like low key. So I can't claim if this dude was natty or not because he front squatted like 600 pounds, which is just crazy. So he was my first trainer ever. His name is Zach Goldman. He trained out of 614 Barbell in Columbus, Ohio. And when I tell you the dude would dunk his squats, like that is kind of like my first uh preview into deeper ranges of motion. In general, he wasn't maybe as meticulous about everything like Team Full ROM is, but he won a powerlifting meet just kind of like walking in fucking. Yeah, so Zach was all about squatting very deep because that had not necessarily a specificity, but a good carryover for building strength and size for his strongman competitions. So then I started to pick up on that. I started squatting deep and being a little bit more conscientious of form. Then, of course, like COVID hit and I started consuming RP content, Team Full ROM. Well, not even Team Full ROM yet, but the preamble of Team Full ROM. And I started to prescribe to that. I started going to the gym in Philly that Dr. Mike and Charlie and Jared were training at for a second, and I was like, dude, I'm gonna be just like these fucking guys.
You saw
And
that person?
I'd see Charlie all the time. At the time, Dr. Mike had moved to Vegas, but yeah, Charlie was still training at Iron Sport in Philly. Um, and so then I started prescribing to Team Full ROM, and kind of like my love for hypertrophy training was born. Uh, I realized I probably wasn't gonna be a great power lifter. Um, just kind of fell out of love with it. Probably never gonna be a great bodybuilder either. It's troubles of being 6'2" and having terrible lower body genetics. But you know, I really enjoyed it, and I think that the training style just meshed with me. It made a lot of sense, and ever since, I've been applying a lot of the concepts, at least to some extent, to my training. Really, ever since like almost 3 years ago.
Nice. Okay, so 3 full years of like full ROM principles, RP principles, and that's landed you in a pretty good spot. I know you say you have shit genetics, but you're looking good, man. Especially like I always tell you, your abs. I think your abs are your best body part. Just really pop out, especially at high body fats. And yeah, so that's cool. Getting into my kind of journey. So well, before we get it, so basically, okay, so you're training kind of like powerlifting style. You're kind of like, the powerlifting is kind of workout. You switch to more hypertrophy, really focusing on the technique, the quality over the weight on the bar. And not only are you enjoying it more, but you're just getting more return on your investment, in your physique and your happiness and kind of,
Yeah, exactly.
okay. And would you say you were growing faster and more with the full range of motion training compared to the kind of like partial powerlifting?
Yeah,
You're growing more, okay.
It's tough to say because I think a lot of the times powerlifters will neglect intensity on accessory movements. Like it's you know, it's almost cultural that you kind of just like, oh, you're like curls, fuck it. Like lateral raises, fuck it. Like tricep extensions, yeah, that'll help me with my bench lockout. But like the other two, they're cool. But like I remember at a certain point, I was just like biceps or whatever, like shoulders, you know, it's not really contributing to my bench that much. So I think like I always have stressed good form and specificity to the contest lifts because my thing was like I might not be the strongest guy, but I'm never gonna get red lighted for form. And like I never did. So I won't say like my form was dog shit, but like in relation to the quality, like man, sometimes I think in Team Full ROM, there for a while, it was almost to the point where it was like, gosh, just let the people fucking live. Like
Yeah.
this slight little thing,
Yeah.
like this slight little improvement isn't even worth mentioning. And I think certain people started realizing that and then kind of like toned down the critique. Uh, um, yeah, we could go off on a tangent there too, but yep.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's interesting. And what were you putting what was your SBD numbers?
So I guess I'll just give you my best of all time. And these were all, oh, I'll give you my best gym lifts. I benched, so it wasn't a paused bench. Paused bench PR was 260. Touch and go is 280. Squat was actually in my meet. I squatted four, oh, it was either 435 or 445. And then deadlift in the gym was 500. I hit the 500 and I was like, fuck it.
Conventional sumo?
Sumo, yeah.
500. Okay, so like low, like 435 squat. Nice. Okay. Um, I mean, hey, you hit that 500 deadlift.
Yeah, that was probably like my happiest powerlifting like memory.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah, hitting that like 435 or 445 squat in the meet, I was like, fuck, I don't know if I'm gonna get this. But like I just did not stop grinding, and that was a great feeling. But like I had worked and I made like a YouTube series off of like hitting a 500-pound deadlift, and that one panned out, so that was cool too. Bench, hate it.
Yeah, bench. Yeah. Yeah, I don't really know what to. I haven't dabbled too much in powerlifting, but yeah, that 500 deadlift seems pretty cool. It seems like your squat and deadlift are a bit stronger than your bench, but no, like 285 bench. That's not weak.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, dude, it's
it's almost
tough.
yourself too. But yeah, no, 285. Like you got to. So yeah, that's cool. Um, so talking about my kind of experience with range of motion. So I got, me and you have both been lifting for 10 years plus. And I started getting serious, like, the first 4 years just bullshit high school football. Like, oh yeah, bro. Like, I put on like 10 pounds, newbie gains. I started taking it seriously in like 2017-ish. Then, started going hard. Um, and because I had already been lifting for 4 years, kind of like football, like competitive, like, oh, how much are you benching? How much are you squatting? I just naturally, it's like, and I grew so much, I gained 10 pounds of muscle. I just naturally kind of, even before I discovered, RP, it's like, there's got to be something to like the feel component of it, right? Like when you're doing bicep curls, not just doing the weight, but actually feeling it, right? And so I really leaned into that, like for years, for 2, 3 years. I wasn't getting competitive with the numbers. I wasn't like, oh, how much you bench, how much you squat. I was like just individually like, how much can I feel this, but for years and years and years. And like the range of motion, the stretch, like basically trying to put as much pain in the muscle as possible. Um, and like over the years, I got more and more evidence based. It's like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be doing all this volume. Maybe I should crank up the intensity a little, drop the volume a little bit. Oh, the goal isn't to get sore. Okay, I don't need to do like, it's not just like make yourself suffer. There's like a whole periodization aspect of it. And I slowly got more evidence, but I was really leaning into that, like that field component. And so I was doing this for, right, not just like a mesotype, but like for years. And then of course I discovered like RP, like 2019, 2020, it's like, oh, range of, and it validates that. It's like, oh, I'm doing it right. Right. And for years, so like 4 or 5 years, I'm not so much aggressively, progressively overload. My ego is not attached at all to the weight. My ego is attached to how much can I feel the muscle, how sore can I make it, right? Like really in the mind muscle connection. And it were like I'll gain 5 pounds here and there, gain 10 pounds, but like it's just not, you know. And then like I worked with a coach for a little bit. Something he pointed out. He's like, "Hey, I really see you. Like you're really focusing." Like I was doing rows. I sent him a video, and he could tell I was really focusing on like the contraction, almost like very much to the extent of like mechanical tension to the weight. And he's like, "I think you just need to fucking just pull it, man. Like don't worry, so like just do it." Oh, okay. And I slowly started implementing that style where, okay, now I'm not like so like, oh, like how much do I feel it, which muscle, and just like pulling the weight, all my like everything goes up by like I'm adding 10, 20, 50 pounds. I'm way stronger on everything. I'm getting way more mechanical tension in the muscle. And I just fucking blew up. Like I just my plateau, it's like holy shit. Now there was like one injury in there. Because then I went the opposite, right? Because I went from like, oh, it's all about technique, it's all about form. I flip-flopped. I'm like, it's all about, just how much weight you're lifting. And I did get injured. I blew my back out. It's like, fuck, all right, it's somewhere in the middle. So now after both those extremes, I've arrived at a point where like it's like, okay, fundamentally, what are we trying to do? Right? We're trying to drive mechanical tension into the muscle. That's what we're trying to do. Now, where range of motion comes into that, I think, is number one. There's two parts, right? Number one is injury prevention, right? If you're lifting less weight, it's been said, like John Jewett will say, like the goal at a certain point is to get the most stimulus you can with the least amount of weight. In a sense, I agree with that. I don't 100%, but it is true in a sense, right? And then the second component is, working the muscle through the whole, lengthen range, shorten range, different fibers right in there. But yeah, that's just kind of, I just wanted to come out here and say that because I think a lot of us start out, we get our egos attached to the weight. And my personal anecdote, I was the opposite. I got my ego attached too much to the form, to the technique. And then when I put a little bit onto the weight, I just blew up. And so, um, yeah, I think like you said, like team full ROM, like, and I think there's a use for it, right? Oh, critique my form, and you're just like looking at it, like oh, like this. Um, that's a great tool. It has its place, but I think people need to remember, right? The limiting factor fundamentally is going to be the amount of uh, mechanical tension over time. And if you're just like obsessing about like, oh, what's my form? What's my form? You're never going to hit that threshold. You're never going to get to that freakish level. So I don't know if you have anything
Yeah.
jump.
Um, something that I think about often. You'll have to probably help me along with this analogy because I'm getting fucking old. I haven't been in college for a minute, but a big thing that you stress in like these courses are like the contributors to hypertrophy, right? So you have mechanical tension, metabolite accumulation. There's probably like two others that are kind of like escaping my mind, but
Um,
those,
it's like a pyramid. So the base is
yeah,
mechanical tension. That's like
yeah,
70% of your gains. The second is metabolites, and
yeah,
the top one is damage, right? Like how sore.
yes, 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 yes. There's not a fourth. There's just three.
There probably is a fourth. Like it's okay. So like 70% of your gains are just straight up from mechanical tension.
Mm-hmm.
20% is like metabolites. Metabolites is like the burn, right? It's like the burn you feel.
Right.
And then that top 5% is damage. They're the fourth one. I'm not sure. I think it's pretty much just those three fundamentally.
Yeah. Good enough. So it's like I thought of this analogy once. When people try to stray away from like actually like lifting heavy loads and like working hard, right? And doing all those things. I'm gonna adjust this real quick. There we go. So
Oh,
the way I thought of it is,
there is a stretch component to gains. I think
yeah,
on sites where they don't even they just put it under stretch and hold it there for a minute,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
it actually does grow on the
yeah.
muscle.
Like the Eric Helms calf thing that's
Yeah.
he's been doing. So it's like a lot of people currently, maybe not currently, a year or two ago, 3 years ago, the big craze was like electric vehicles, right? It's like, oh, like let's get an electric vehicle. This is the way forward, yada yada. But then you start to realize, wow, this is a really cool concept, and this is maybe the way forward. But like right here in the early 2020s, there's not maybe the infrastructure, like it's not the most accessible thing for most people. and it's just maybe not the most researched. Like, how would the implicate? How would the whole world be impacted if everybody switched from gas cars to EVs, right? And the way I'm going to tie this back in is like we have all these other contributors to hypertrophy other than mechanical tension. And some people are putting such a big emphasis on all of these. It's like, hold up, guys. We have all of this research. We have decades and decades of tried and true results from focusing on mechanical tension to drive hypertrophy, just as like we know, like, oh, like the gas combustion engine is a very reliable and semi-sustainable thing for the majority of people. But everybody's looking for the novel thing. So like I'll agree 100%. Like mechanical tension is the tried and true thing that you should probably focus on for hypertrophy. And sure, we have other things that are coming up and other things that you can start leaning into, but maybe we're not quite there to just obsess about those other things. Similarly, it's like not everyone should be like, oh, I have to get an EV. It's like, hold up. Let's maybe wait until Elon gets the next Tesla and then saves our universe and transports us all to Mars, and then we can worry about getting it. I'm also pro EV, guys. I'm not trying to. That's just a shitty analogy I thought of. Do you have an EV? You live in California.
I have a hybrid.
Hell yeah, I love it.
I have a hybrid. But yeah, I really like that. Yeah, and look, I think to add to that, look, we're all at different points in our journey, right? For example, I get a client come in that will come in and he's pretty muscular, huge biceps, pretty jacked, but he wants to keep going. And I'll usually just like, okay, I'll ask him, what have you been doing? Um, and I'll kind of watch him kind of train for a session on his own. And I see, oh, he's doing a lot of partials. He's really working that shortened range, really kind of like do short range, heavy weight, as heavy as he can go, but really, and he's gotten results, but he's plateaued. He hasn't made any gains in like a year. It's like, okay, for a fact with him, okay, I'm introducing full range of motion training. It's like, hey, have you ever thought about going all the way down on the curls? Let's drop the weight. Okay, on the back movements, let's drop the weight. Let's focus on feeling the muscle. He's gonna blow up, right? And I ask, hey, have you been doing it? He's like, no, I haven't. I thought it was all about the weight. And sure enough, 70-80% of the time they blow up, right? Um, Vice versa, right? Get clients that come in, whether they're beginner, advanced, whatever, and they're just not pushing it, right? Like they're doing tons of volume, they're doing the lightweight, they're like, I feel it here, I feel it in your quads. I'm like, yeah, that's fucking great. Here, let's add 20 pounds to the bar. Come on, let's go. And 80% of the time they blow up. Right. So it's this really, we're all on separate points. Some of us have been leaning too much, like I said before, into the feel, into the kind of like good technique. Some of us have been leaning too much into the, yeah, weight on the bar, the best results. And I think it's good. I'm not saying you have to be perfectly in the middle every time. I actually think it is useful and valuable to have periods of your training career when, okay, really lean into the weight, really lean into the feel. And then over time, you do this for like a decade, you're going to find your optimal. You're going to, it's like periodization, right? You periodize, you're working the muscle, not just physiologically, but also psychologically. Like you get tired, like you can only go heavy for so long. You want to change the stimulus, not only physical, but like up here too, and vice versa. And the idea mechanical tension will go up, the stress on the muscle, the fiber recruitment. Um, it's something I'm experimenting too. Like I said, like I've been doing bodybuilding training for so many years now. I have a 2-year long off season. I'm probably going to start introducing some powerlifting training because it's going to allow me to continue to progress and just kind of give this a break, right? Because I've been doing the stretch and all that. Um, and so yeah, look, I'm not making the muscle confusion argument. I'm not. That's clearly like you can't confuse like, oh, muscle confusion. That's not true. I'm not like you should be progressing on movements, but I'm saying just in terms of like approaches, you know, I see some like I'll just come straight up and like feel free to disagree with me on this. That's why you're here. We're not here necessarily to agree. We're here to kind of figure out the truth. So I see people doing the full ROM. I'm not saying everyone, I'm not saying you, I'm not saying I see people doing the full ROM for years and years and years, the full ROM style, forget the weight on the bar, like the range of motion. And I've just watching them like year after year, and they have good results. I'm just like, man, I feel like you could eke out another 20% if like maybe you experimented with some partials, like heavy partials, right? Maybe you experiment. I don't know if you follow Geoffrey Verity Schofeld, but like getting dirty with it, like kind of sheet reps intelligently, right? I'm not saying, but like at the ends of sets, at the ends of mesocycle, kind of like that dog fight, where like this Jeremy Schofeld guy, like he'll get dirt, like he'll be doing his stuff and like he'll do 10 reps, like he's just like fighting, it doesn't look pretty, it's not, but it's like, man, that's just putting, in layman's terms, that's putting so much mechanical tension into the muscle that you just can't get if you're just religiously committed to a range of motion.
Mm-hmm.
Feel free to take a shit on any of that. What do you think?
Yeah. Very hard thing to definitively say yes or no, because you have certain individuals in the untested, more hardcore bodybuilding space. Let's say like two examples that come to mind. Back in the day, we had Branch Warren, and he was like, holy fuck, like, dude, like I'd be like, what are you doing? But you know is it to say that maybe that just worked for him because he was actually contracting the muscles? Some people say Branch Warren, he was rowing 500 pounds, but he was able to actually feel the muscles, and he was using some body English, but he was able to make that work and grow. Or did he just have that good of genetics? Also, we have real quick James Hollingshead. I don't know if you follow him, but he was doing some lat pull downs with the stack, and they were getting a little sloppy by the end. But it's also like maybe he was really engaging his lats. It's very hard to say, and there's a skill component as well with that. That's what a lot of people don't realize too, is there's a skill in training. So I'd say it's very hard to say. I'm not very convinced one way or another on it. They have gotten a little more body English, still great results, great physiques, and it's hard to know whether that's just genetics or whether there is some validity to saying like, oh, they can really feel their muscles, and while their form is not optimal, they're still getting a ton out of using that heavy load. It's hard for, I feel like hard for you and me to say, because like, dude, even if it's like 275 on bent over barbell rows, I don't know if I could do like cheat rows and be productive like that with that. That would probably fuck me up with a ton of systemic fatigue, and then also kind of like mess with my hip. So man, you should test that out. Try to get some heavy ass movements in there, and I'm sure I can figure something out too. But I don't know, man. It's hard to definitively say. You know.
I'm not doing heavy rows. I'm that's
Yeah. Your back's fucked up. That's right.
that's gonna fuck me up into like psychologically, physically. I'm not doing heavy rows. That's I'm glad you brought that up, because this whole bullshit philosophy that I'm advocating for, of like, kind of like experimenting, do all this. I'm very selective with my movements, right? I'm not just watching like, oh, it's time to squat. For example, like you see me doing the belt squat, right? The belt squat's not going to mess with your back. Like I'm very like accurate and selective with when, where, and how I do it, right? Even to the set, like, okay, the first two sets I'm going to go standard, full range of motion, but and then that last set I'm going to fucking take, or vice versa. Like it's very selective. So for, like you brought up the bent over row, that's just going to fuck you up. It's going to fuck up your back. It's going to, maybe there's like 1% of people out there, maybe for Branch Warren, it works. It also gets really tricky when you're introducing drugs into the system, with genetics. Then you don't know what's getting those. Is it the drugs? Is it the train? Shit. You know what? I'm just gonna keep this in. Screw it. Okay, so you don't know if is it the drugs, is it the training, and so it can be hard to tell. Another interesting layer of nuance here that Dr. Mike has alluded to is we think of genetics in terms of um, just like how you respond to training. There is also a genetic component to how prone you are to injury, right? So some people are very, their joints are just very, like you just flick them and they're going to get injured. other people, they can get hit by a bus and they just pop back up, they're fine. There's a um, lifestyle component. You make your history with, did you play football for 7 years? Is your knee fucked up? Or are you fresh? There's a genetic component to drugs, to injuries. And so I think that could also add to this kind of confusion we're seeing. Like, why does person X, why are they training like a jackass, but they're getting really good results? And then I do one partial and get injured. There's a thing there. So again, just adding to the value and use of, look, test it for yourself. You got to find out who you are, how your physiology and psychology responds. Um, you know, like I talked about Jarity, Geoffrey, Verity, Schofeld. He seems like a guy, he strikes me as like that guy can literally, just in terms of injuries, like you could literally just take him and just bend him, like snap him in half and he'll just recover. Like I think he's very, and that's why I think he gets away with all that crazy stuff and gets good results. So um it's an advantage. Look, if you're like robust like that, you can take a lot, you might as well take advantage of it. If you're not like that, then, and if you're like most people, every movement's going to be different, right? Like me, like my lower back, I have to be pretty careful with my lower back, and I have been being very careful, and it's been great so far. Something like, my shoulders, man, I could literally like take a shotgun and shoot my shoulder and it'll be fine the next, like it's crazy, right? So different body parts are different, right? And so I know with my shoulders I can throw hell, I don't want to waste mental energy like, oh, how's my forearm? Like I don't need to like, I want to save that energy for my squats, right? And it works. I get the best results that way. So you figure out how you are. You might see like curls, that you say like, oh, I can really get away with cheat, like there's nothing, it doesn't hurt my joints, I've been doing this for years. Versus like you say like, oh, if I'm not careful on XYZ movement, so you pick your spots. It's selective, and this is an advanced thing. So if you're listening to this and you've only been lifting for a year, this might not be the best thing for you to listen to. Just of anything, keep it in your mind for 5-10 years down the road. I think for the first 5 years, just follow a program, get on a solid and evidence-based program from someone like David, someone like myself, RP, get on like a solid program, follow it, see what you think. And then, okay, after like 5 years of like good, okay, start branching out, see how you respond to the partials, higher volume, lower volume. That if you really want this, like if you really want the best results, that's how you're going to get there. That's how you're going to, break past these plateaus. And it's something not necessarily something like I or David can like tell you, have to find it for yourself. It's very unique and personal.
Yeah. There's a book that I believe Brad Schoenfeld wrote, and it's like I haven't read it and I can't even remember the exact title, but it's like basically creating like an individualized plan for yourself. Like that's the whole goal. And I think that's really the goal of finding what training works best, is just like figure out what works best for you. And so many times we get influenced by social media figures that are super jacked that you're like, oh, I want to attach onto these ideals and these philosophies. And it's even the same thing with RP. It's like, oh, like you like the scientific approach that Dr. Mike takes, let's attach ourselves to that. But like even to a point, even for me, I'm like, oof, let's take a step back. As much as I love Dr. Mike and Jared and all the guys, it's like, let's take a step back. This shit isn't law. It's not going to work best for you. Team full ROM is a selling point when it really comes down to it. Like, yes, training in full ranges of motion is probably on average going to help more people with their hypertrophy results, but at the same fucking time, it's a marketing deal. It's like it's what they've attached themselves to. And that's also kind of a not, maybe not the best play long term, because we're getting information about length and partials and how that can help with hypertrophy. And there's probably going to be more developments, whether they're innovations in machines or new research, that there might be a chance that full range of motion isn't optimal. And then like, what do? It's like your fucking dick's out, your whole team full ROM. Like, are you going to change your LLC name? I don't know. And I'm not saying that I love these guys. Like,
Yeah.
I back them and I I appreciate all the work that they do. But I'm just thinking, like, maybe from a business perspective, it's not best to base your entire business around something that could change, like the name of your business. And, that's just a criticism. It's not anything personal.
Yeah, no, like I just want to point out, like, look, everything I agree with everything you just said, but also like, look, these guys, I'm so grateful for RP's provided so much value that like so much value to the community, so much. And to be honest, like I think culturally, okay, so maybe long term, like 30 years down the line, we find out, okay, full range of motion isn't as important. It's important, but it's like not the shit like we thought it was in 2020. I think we needed them to correct for so many, like, culturally,
Oh
like,
yeah.
they never came out like Team Full ROM, like, because look, before, like, most of our egos, we were all in, like, 10 years ago when we're all attached to, like, ego lifting formula. I think communally, we needed someone to kind of come out and be like, "Hey, really push this," and I think over time, we'll kind of settle. So I'm so grateful for these guys, and I love what they're doing. I think it's great. Um, but then again, I think we would be kind of naive to kind of, religiously kind of cling to it. Maybe in the short term, I think it's great. Like in a month, like 2 to 3 months, yeah, really buy into it. But like in your long term, like I'd be hard pressed to. I wouldn't want to follow like one system for like years and years and years and years and years. Um,
Oh yeah. Have you done that? Like, have you ever been kind of hoodwinked?
oh yeah, that's
Do you
yeah,
want
that
to talk about that real quick? Because I have some funny stories.
could like kind of misled.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I that's the nature of the game. Like,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I see it now. Like, I was such a confused uh young man a year ago, um kind of like why don't this is going to take a turn. Like why don't people just authentically say what they think? Like why is this, why are there camps of, like, whatever, politically, in terms of training, like there's all this tension and like strong identities, like what about somewhere in the middle? Like why not? And now that I've kind of learned about business, it's like, no, like you can make a lot of money if you're a polarizing figure, right?
Yeah.
If
Exactly.
you're coming out and you're saying like we've been doing it, you make a lot of money. So I was like, oh shit, this okay. So it all makes sense now. So I
Hmm.
think, like, as consumers, we just have to be mindful of that. And yeah, I mean, I was like 18. I spent like $300 on bullshit supplements, like, you know, and
Was there like an influencer attached to that?
yeah, at that point, it was like just a guy at the gym, like, oh, you're getting into trail, you need to buy these supplements. I'm like, okay, like how can I look like you? Like the guy's using steroids, and like I don't know. I was like, how can I look like you? Right? We're in the fitness industry, like we're in a very, it's a very vulnerable position to be a consumer, because most of what's driving the kind of emotional purchase, you want to look like someone. And so whatever
Hmm.
that person could say, hey, you need to eat dog crap 7 times a day, if you don't have your critical thinking, how you're gonna be like, okay, like tell me more, um, when it's not eating the dog crap that's getting them the results, it's the steroids and the training. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, how have you kind of been hoodwinked?
Yeah. Dude, this has come full circle. It's pretty cool. Uh, so when I was like senior in high school, one of my best like friends, this guy that I grew up with, he was like, dude, you got to check out this guy, Corey Gregory. He owned the company Muscle Farm at the time. And uh, Corey started this squat every day thing, which was like a bodybuilding.com program. And then it transcended into his own thing because he parted ways with Muscle Farm. The company tanked. And then he left bodybuilding.com, but I started squatting every day. And I did that for over 2 years. And then Corey started a supplement brand called Max Effort Muscle. And like the big thing was like pre-workout and BCAAs. Now back in 2015, 2016, it wasn't quite as commonly known that you don't necessarily need BCAAs. And I got so bought in. Like I was squatting every day. My lower back was fucking screaming every day. My squat numbers weren't really going up after a certain point. My legs weren't growing at a certain point. My bank account was fucking sparse because like every month I would drop like $150 on supplements and I was in college. And I even got to the point where like he was lifting 30 minutes outside of Columbus. So I would wake up at 3 a.m. I worked until 10 p.m. I'd wake up at fucking 3 a.m. and go drive out there and train with him. We'd fucking go crazy. And then his whole diet thing was anabolic fasting, where you wouldn't eat until like noon. And then like the carbs were super low too. That was also a thing, like high fat, low carbs. And so there was so much stupid shit in there. And after I kind of like wisened up to it, I was like, dude, fuck Corey. Like, he is out here scamming people. Like, he is like a piece of shit for that. And then I was like, like, he's actually not a bad person. Like, the dude, like, knowing more about him, he came from nothing, like, super poor, lived in a trailer. Mom was working 2 jobs, didn't really have his dad was in the picture, but not really. Dude was poor as fuck, and now he's a millionaire. His family is set. He had to do something to provide the life he wanted for his kids and create generational change for their lives. Like, was it stupid? Yes, but like there's so much more behind um getting caught up in somebody's fitness ideology. And that's why you can't ever get too dogmatic about any one training philosophy, any one nutrition or supplement approach, because usually that shit is wrong. So
Oh, that's a good. I can already tell that's going to be like the reel that I use to advertise this podcast with.
yeah, dude.
Yeah, that was really well said. Yeah, and it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I got a head nod from Corey, but I think he kind of knew it. Like, there's a good camp of people that left that gym and was like talking shit about him and his supplement company. And then I got a head nod from him at the Arnold this last March. So I guess it's all good.
Oh, good. Yeah. And I'm guessing this Corey guy, I haven't seen him, but I'm guessing he has really good genetics.
Really, really, not the best, but he is just fucking locked in, man. He never I learned so much from him in that regard. Like, I shit you not, I've never been more excited and more disciplined about my days than when I was training with him. The dude is on another level. You have to have something in you, some type of intrinsic work ethic to make $1 million every year. Like, I was fucking on fire when I woke up at 3 a.m. off of like 5, 6 hours of sleep to go train. And we fucking got after it, dude. Like, the workouts weren't great. There was one workout where we did 20 sets of 20 on bench. So many reps, bro. But like, and I was one of the more like locked in dudes there. I was never the most genetically, I was never the strongest, but like, dude, he could tell that I was always one of the first people in the gym, always one of the last to leave. I would clean shit up. Like, I learned a lot from that whole thing, and I can't be mad about it. But I know we're taking a big turn away from full ROM to partial ROM, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting, man. How even though okay, like they're kind of like not giving you what's optimal for you, just kind of the motivation and the passion, the spark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's something, yeah. Yeah, like because like look, we can sit here and talk shit all day about these people. It's like, man, they built an empire, um certain people just when they speak, like very charismatic people, they speak it just draws people's attention. It's like they were built to be an influencer. They were just programmed that
Mm-hmm.
combined with the work that they put in. Yeah, yeah, it's
You know what else is interesting is now on TikTok, there's like a whole other platform to engage with influencers on, right? So like back in the day, 5, 10 years ago, it was a little harder to like talk to these people, talk to these influencers. And now people are on TikTok be like, bro, your training's dog shit. Like, what the fuck have you done? You're tiny, like all this shit. The dude squatted like 600. He's been a cover model, and people are just talking shit. And that's another thing where it's like, oh man, we have a whole other platform, which is like good and bad. Like TikTok, the way you can engage with people. He always replies to people too, which is funny. But yeah,
uh
dude.
Corey that they're talking shit about.
Yeah, yeah. They like talk shit, and he'll be like, actually, bro, I've squatted 600, or like, actually, look how fucking shredded I was for this uh cover shoot that I did. Like, all this funny stuff.
It's the same with Geoffrey Verity Schofield. Like people like he'll just be doing some crazy shit like partials. Like he's like kind of it just kind of looks kind of funky, and people like bro, like that's horrible that you're doing it, and he's just like, look at my physique. Like what, the guy's fucking
Yeah.
naturally like jacked, absolutely jacked naturally, and yeah. Well, okay, cool. I do not feel like going and turning the lights back on, so why don't we end it here? Is there anything else to be said?
I'm dead. Fucking. Oh yes, yes,
Now I'm about to
yeah,
tell.
dude. Ryan's been dropping so much electric knowledge that the power went out. So we're going fucking zero dark 30 on him. Co-op or no, not co-op. We could do co-op. We're going covert and closing this podcast out in the dark. But yeah, bro, sorry to derail that. I guess guys, like my final statement will be I'd say SFR is the huge thing to be stimulus to fatigue ratio is the huge thing. Many times fuller ranges of motion will give you better SFR. However, don't write other things off the book just because someone online said so. Like you're going to have to try a lot of different things. You're going to have to put years into this if you're serious about it. Or you just kind of like concede and do what the people are saying and you'll probably still get good results, but maybe not the best ever. That's all I got.
Well said, well said. And yeah, just to add to that, yeah, SFR is huge. Um, it's kind of like a battle between SFR and raw stimulus. You want to get both as high as you possibly can. And yeah, look, just experiment, find what works for you. You're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna get injured, but you know, depends what you want. If you want to be the absolute best, 100% maximize your muscular potential, whether you're natural or enhanced, you're gonna have to find what works for you. Whether that's training 3 days a week, 6 days a week, 2 a days, full range of motion. If you're like 99% of people, it's gonna be trial and error for years and years and years.
Yeah, dude.
Awesome. All right. David, thank you for joining us today, folks. This has been the Ryan Dosa Unfiltered podcast. And yeah, David, thank you.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you.